Hello everyone! Today I want to talk about something that I've been thinking about for far too long. Consciousness. I've been wanting to do a video on this for years, and I've written multiple scripts and ultimately discarded them. So I thought, why don't I just ramble in front of the camera for a while and see if I can get something useful out of it. So first off, what do I mean by consciousness? What is the particular specific question I'm interested in? And when I talk about consciousness in this video, what I'm referring to is the sensation of experiencing things, of seeing colors, of tasting flavors, of thinking thoughts, the inner movie, the perception of experience. Hopefully somewhere in there I've communicated what I'm talking about to you. A question has puzzled philosophers for centuries about how this consciousness is connected with the rest of the world, which seems so unconscious. Most recently, the philosopher David Chalmers articulated the two major questions of consciousness: the easy problem and the hard problem. The easy problem is the problem we can explore through science. We can look into brains, get very good at reading neurons, and figure out exactly what information, what physical process is happening that correlates with our conscious experiences. For instance, when we see a color, what brain patterns are firing? When we see a shape, what is that doing in our brain? When we feel emotions, when we taste flavors, when we think thoughts, what is happening exactly in our brains? What are our neurons doing? That's the easy problem of consciousness. The hard problem of consciousness is the question of why consciousness exists at all, and why isn't the universe full of zombies? In this context, a zombie is a physical system like a brain that does all the physical things that conscious brains do, but is not itself conscious. It does not itself have that inner experience of colors and flavors, etc. You know, the question of would it be possible for there to be an exact copy of our universe where everything happens exactly the same, including people, including neurons, but that universe has no consciousness associated with it. And so far, we've made some decent progress on the easy problem. Theories such as integrated information theory, which I believe most recently talks about loops of information specifically in the brain, but not necessarily limited to brains. You know, anything that does the same thing as a brain, such as a sufficient computer algorithm, would also be conscious in the same way that a brain is conscious. And so the idea is that consciousness as we understand it is the electrical patterns in our neurons that are stimulating other neurons to fire and to go into loops, to reinforce, to create patterns, to take in stimulus from our senses, and to create models about what is happening and what is going to happen if we take this action or that action. So it seems like we are making some pretty good progress on the easy problem, and we can see a path forward into the future, perhaps hundreds or thousands of years in the future, where we would be able to fully understand the easy problem of consciousness. The hard problem, on the other hand, might require us to rethink our fundamental ideas about the nature of reality. So to explain what I mean by this, I'm going to start with a theory of reality called representational realism. This is the idea that reality exists, but we don't personally have direct access to it. When you see something like the screen on your device, it's natural to think that you're perceiving it as it is. This is a device in your hands. It has a location in space. It has a distance from your face. It has a shape. It has images on it. It has sounds coming from it. And it's natural to think that that's the way it really is. Representational realism would say that's incorrect. That's not quite how it is. That's a model of how it is. Your perception is a model created in your brain. So space, distance between you and something, the color of something, the shape of something is a model in your brain. If you've ever listened to Donald Hoffman, his description is that our conscious experience of things is like icons on a desktop. The objects that we see, the colors and shapes that we perceive, the distance, it's all interface. And the reality itself is as different from what we perceive, is as different from what we experience as the desktop interface is from the processes that the computer is actually doing. So, now that I've properly given you an existential crisis, let's look at a few other types of representations. Concepts are representations. We make models in our minds, we write equations on paper, we write words, we do math. All of that is representations. Up to and including theories of science, theories of physics. These things are not reality itself, they're representations. Even fundamental physics is just a representation. Reality is not a concept. Reality is not math. Reality is not an idea. Reality is not a perception. Reality is just reality. That's not to say our models and theories and perceptions are wrong. They're just not reality themselves. They're about reality. So, if we take representational realism as true, then what does that mean for reality? What can we actually know of reality? Not just about reality, but of reality itself. And the answer is the only part of reality itself that we directly experience, that we directly know, is our own consciousness. Your consciousness is reality. It's not all of reality, but it's the part of reality that you know absolutely for certain. So if we tie this back to the hard problem of consciousness, the question is, how can we have consciousness in a physical, material world? The answer to this is that physical materialism is not reality. Physical materialism is a theory. It's a representation of reality. It's a pretty good one. It lets us do a lot of stuff, but materialism is ultimately a concept, and reality is not a concept. And I should point out a little technicality. There is a concept of consciousness, but the experience of consciousness is not a concept. It's an experience. So there's no contradiction with consciousness being a part of reality. So what am I saying? Am I saying that brains don't exist? Am I saying that neurons don't exist? I mean, you can take a sample of brain tissue and look at it under a microscope and see the cells. You can see the neurons. So I'm not saying that brains and neurons don't exist. I'm saying that they're representations of a deeper reality. And in the brain of a living human being, that deeper reality is that person's consciousness. So the answer to the hard problem is the physical world, theories of physics, theories of the material world are representations. They're concepts. The perception of a brain, when you see somebody else's brain, hopefully you don't see other people's brains very often. When you see somebody else's brain or somebody else's neurons, that's a perception. Perceptions are not reality. Theories are not reality. They are about reality. The reality is the person's consciousness. This leads, naturally, to another question. If our understanding of the physical world is just about reality, not reality itself, then what is the nature of reality outside of our brains, outside of our consciousness? Clearly, it's not conscious as we understand consciousness, but the question does sort of point to something that feels a bit more mystical than modern scientists may be comfortable with. The idea that maybe consciousness doesn't stop at the boundaries of the brain. Maybe it just changes character. Sure, the air around me may not be conscious in any way that I recognize as consciousness, but it's made out of the same particles that our brains are made of. And I may be going into wild territory here, but that sort of suggests to me that there is a type of, not consciousness per se, but proto-consciousness, or building blocks of consciousness that exists everywhere throughout all matter and all space. Now you're probably saying, oh, this guy's crazy, I'm gonna click away, I'm not gonna watch anything else that he says. But hear me out. What motivation do I have to deceive you? I'm not like trying to get you to buy my self-help book or anything. I'm not shilling out for a corporation or for some ideology. These are just my honest thoughts on the subject. And I could be wrong, But to me, it seems like it might be more a matter of definitions and interpretations than actual wrongness. Regardless, it's a fun topic to think about, and I at least have resolved the hard problem of consciousness in my own mind in a way that I am satisfied with. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.